Welcome into the Bruce Arians Show. Casey Phillips here with head coach Bruce Arians. And coach, congratulations on another huge win. First win out in that new stadium out in Vegas. First, I wanted to hear from you just what it was like leading up to the game with so much uncertainty and how you felt like the team handled it with the change in when the game was going to be played and there even being a period of time when you weren't sure if it was going to be played on Sunday.
Yeah, it was try to keep it as much business as usual, stay on schedule. Then have an alternate plan, whether we might have played on Monday or Tuesday, what we would done in practice and schedule those times. And then the hardest thing was, getting another plane to go back out there. We had a rough time. Tim Jarocki did a great job of getting us back home because of the change in schedule.
Yeah, there's so much to it that I think fans don't necessarily realize. So that is a great reminder on his part. And I know this was also the first time you pretty much had everybody healthy going into the game and knew before right at game time who all was going to be healthy. So how big of a factor is that for you as coaches in planning? And what was it like to see that and see especially your offense back to more full strength?
Yeah, it was great. I wouldn't say we're still healthy, but we had all our hands on deck and guys were sucking it up and playing. And so, yeah, it was fun to finally have all the pieces out there together offensively and defensively again.
I know there was a point in the first half when Brady had 123 passing yards, and I think only 30 of them were to actual wide receivers, that it was really running back and tight end heavy there. What was it that the defense was doing, or maybe like you mentioned with health stuff going on? What were some of the factors that led to that distribution, especially early in the game?
Mostly the way they were playing defense. They were double zone on our two wide receivers a bunch in that ball game, especially Mike. He was double covered almost the whole game. And, so that leads it to the tight ends and the backs. And Tom did a great job of delivering the ball and finding the guys that were open. And, it was a good all-around performance by the quarterback for sure.
When teams are playing a guy like Mike that way, I mean, I know that so much of what you want to do on offense is take what the defense gives you. Is there ever a time when you're thinking that you need to do some things to ensure that he can be a bigger part of the game plan when, he wasn't really targeted that first half? Or is it just, hey, this is what happens some games and we got to have more weapons therefore?
Well, a little bit of both, but still we got to target Mike. We got to get him the football. And I was going through the entire game plan, kind of Rolodex, and how in the heck can we get him somewhere in the middle of the field open? And, it took a while, but finally we got, did get 2 pass interference penalties called it for him. But, again, we got to get those targets to him. And I really liked our forward wide receiver sets with him in the middle so that it's a little bit harder to double cover him. But the other guys all stepped up. Chris had a big game. Scotty obviously had a huge game. Gronk had another big ball game, as did Leonard Fournette. So it's good to spread it around. 9 guys got balls. And, again, Tyler found the end zone. Great play by Tom. But Tom Brady played great in this ball game.
Yeah, he absolutely did. And especially, talking about his performance, that deep ball touchdown pass to Scotty Miller, I can't imagine that could be run more perfectly. It could be thrown more perfectly. Take us through that play and how impressed you were with his accuracy on that and the chemistry with him and Scotty.
Yeah, I thought it was a great call by Byron Leftwich. We thought they might be thinking that we were playing for a field goal and going to throw a little shorter pass. And Scotty just ran right by him, but Tom dropped a dime right in the back corner of the end zone. Scotty ran and got it. Big play right before half to get a touchdown.
Yeah, what do you feel like that play did for the game overall? I felt like there were so many similarities to this game and maybe, the Packers game and just some of these other games where you'd been down a little bit and then there were some big game-changing plays to swing the momentum. Did you sense some similarities there?
Yeah, definitely. They came out, they looked fresh and hot on offense and got 10 points quickly. But when you go up 2 scores right before half, it's always huge. And that 2-minute drive was the best one we've had this season.
And Gronk, another incredible touchdown catch, 2 games in a row. And how do you feel like you've been able to see his play change and evolve over the course of the season and where he's at now with the familiarity and comfortability with this offense and he and Brady being on the same page?
Yeah, Gronk has really worked hard. It's a big change for him coming into this offense, learning the terminology, but he's playing really fast right now, very comfortable in the offense, and Tom's obviously comfortable with him, and just continue to work out ways to get them both, on the same page all the time.
I know that Chris Godwin was back last week, but it felt like this was the game where he was really back. 9 catches, 88 yards, and a touchdown, and of course everything that he does even outside of that in the game in terms of blocking. Where would you evaluate this in terms of this season, how healthy he's been and his ability to produce?
Yeah, for a guy right up to Chris before the game, I said, "What do you think? How close are you?" So I'm about 80%. That's a pretty daggone good game for an 80% guy, that's for sure.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what 100% Chris does then at that point. What have you seen from him and Brady in particular in the way they've been able to grow and what Tom has said about what Chris can mean to him in this offense?
Yeah, especially in the middle of the field. I think, like I said, when teams are doubling Mike, it gives Chris an opportunity to work inside underneath a lot. And that's a part of the offense that takes a little bit of time. Quarterback and receiver meshing, especially when Chris has option routes, and we're getting better and better at it.
And you mentioned earlier this was the first game having Leonard Fournette back and available completely. And I wanted to hear what you thought of his game, Rojo's game, and maybe especially the way that you used both of them, that their carries were pretty evenly split, and it was almost a bit of a alternating quarters thing, it seemed like, with who you were deploying there. So what was the reasoning behind the way that you used the two of them and the way that they were both able to play?
ROJO had his normal role, and I thought he ran really hard again, and wish he'd caught that screen pass. I think that could have had a big chance for us. Leonard took over the nickel spot and did a great job in his pass protection, blitz pickups, and obviously that 3rd and 13 was a huge pickup. So his snap count went up, and good to see him back out there healthy.
Yeah, and overall, just the two of them being able to have them as that 1-2 punch as compared to just having to rely on maybe one primary back so much more often. What does that open up for you guys with the rest of the offense?
Well, you got fresh legs out there all the time, and that's huge, especially coming in the fourth quarter when you want to establish the run a little bit more. The Raiders did a good job of shutting down our running game a little bit, but we hit some big ones. But yeah, to have two healthy backs, it means all the world.
And Tyler Johnson, another touchdown as well. How much have you seen him improve, and what do you feel like his role can be? When it seems like, man, when he gets in there, he definitely seems to make the most of those opportunities.
Yeah, Tyler did a good job. You can see his confidence growing and growing. He missed all that time, but he's making up for it right now. He's playing at a really, really good level.
And with him, what are some of his unique skills or abilities that make him a bit of a playmaker? That, we know his 40 time wasn't necessarily the fastest of wide receivers. And so what is it about him that when maybe some of the typical things that you can point to as to why a guy is successful aren't there, what does he really bring?
Well, he's got good size, and he's got a great catching radius. He's got excellent hands. He runs fast enough, but he's quick and sudden in and out of his cuts for a big man. So he had a lot of Chris Godwin in him on tape, and that's one thing I really like. All
right, well, we still have plenty more coming up here on the Bruce Arians Show. We're going to dive more into that Raiders game and look ahead to the Monday Night Football matchup against the Giants. We'll be right back. Welcome back into the Bruce Arians Show. Casey Phillips here with head coach Bruce Arians. Looking back at that Raiders game a little bit more, I wanted to get into the defensive side of things. Antoine Winfield Jr. getting his first career interception. I feel like that was essentially the only stat he had not been able to record. It's such a perfect example of the fact that in all these categories now, he's notched something, and how well-rounded he is at that position to be a rookie and this early in his career. So now that he's gotten that interception, talk us through maybe that play and then what you've seen from him overall.
Yeah, it was Mike Edwards, a big slap on the back because Mike caused the interception. A great tip. And then Antoine finally, he dropped that same pass last week and got down and made sure he got his hands underneath this one and picked it up, made a couple guys miss, and can't say enough about his contribution as a rookie. I mean, he seems like a 4 or 5 year veteran every time he steps on the field.
Yeah, and speaking of Mike Edwards, I mean, at least he gets partial credit for that one, and I know he had another interception earlier in the game that unfortunately got called back. What did you see as far as that play? And we know that there was the penalty that negated it, but his play on that and his overall contribution to the game.
Yeah, it was a really, really close call on SHAQ. He kind of beat the gun. I mean, by a fraction of a second was he across that line. Could have went either way, and then Mike just baited the quarterback into a great interception. And every time Mike's out there, something good happens, and we just got to make sure he's out there more.
And I know SHAQ has been called for that a few times this season. And yeah, some of them are a pretty close call. Overall, what do you feel like you're seeing of what keeps him getting caught kind of in that area? And is it something that you feel like needs to change, or is it just this is kind of what happens when you're someone that really tries to get off quick?
Yeah, he's just trying to get off on the quarterback, and he backed up a little bit and took that one step. Sometimes officials sees that as a neutral zone infraction, but this one, it was a good call because it was just hairline, but it was a good call. And SHAQ, he's got to be more disciplined in those situations because that one led to a touchdown.
Yeah, and Devin White, another guy that just a huge game for him, led the team with 11 tackles, added a career-high 3 sacks. He just was this like heat-seeking missile all over that field, it looked like. What did you see in that game in particular that was working so well for him, and how he was able to be such a big part of that defense?
Yeah, Devin does a great job. Every week with he and Levante, their speed, they're such good pass rushers. We have 4 good ones, so we can't send them all the time. But Devin's sideline to sideline, just making plays, physical in the middle, and some big hits. So that's what we expect from him every week.
All right, well, we still have more coming up here on the Bruce Arians Show, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back into the Bruce Arians Show. Casey Phillips here with head coach Bruce Arians. And I know you guys added nose tackle Steve McClendon last week. And man, on basically no time whatsoever, he was thrown into a game with a new team, ended up with 5 tackles and made some impact plays in that game. Tell us about what you saw of his contribution and how he was able to get in there and make that contribution so quickly after such a short amount of time with the team in meetings and on the field.
Yeah, I was really excited when Jason pulled that trade off because I know Steve, we had him real young in Pittsburgh, and then Todd and Casey had him in New York. So he knew the defense, and he's an ultimate pro and great human being and a great addition to our locker room and our football team. And, he did some virtual meetings with the guys last week and practiced one day, and we knew he was going to have a 25 to 30 snap count in this ball game, and he played really well for us.
And in addition to him, what did you see from the rest of the defensive line? And I know I wanted to hear your thoughts on how poor Sue had to run that ball back so far. And anytime a big man has to run that far and it doesn't even count, that's got to be kind of a sad day for him.
Yeah, I was shocked that we didn't turn around and block that guy and let him get his touchdown. But he would have had to run further and still came back. But every time that ball's on the ground, Sue's going to be around it, picking it up and trying to score. So it was a great play. I thought it was really, again, a very close call, but a good call. His wrist was going forward, and there was a good rush by SHAQ to get his hand.
And how did you feel about the play of guys like Golston and Nacho and these guys that have had to step up even more in the wake of Vita? And did you see where maybe now that McClendon has been added, that it took a little bit off of some of the rest of those interior guys?
There's no doubt. Will's playing at a very high level, and Nacho had another good ball game. But adding Steve, it was great for our rotation. We got a better rotation of big guys in the middle, and Stevie's always been great against the run. And I love seeing his face after the game because he hadn't won a ball game this year. And I looked him in the eyes and said, "Winning's a whole lot of fun," and he just busted out in a big grin. So yeah, our interior guys are playing really well.
I'm sure that definitely made up for some of the craziness of his last week. That's great to hear. And we talked a little bit about some of the safeties, but I wanted to hear your thoughts on the corners and how you felt like they played against some pretty tough guys to go against. Nelson Aguilar, Henry Ruggs, even Darren Waller. These are some pretty decent weapons there.
Yeah, I thought we held our own. I'd like to see us play better. I thought Carlton played really well and then bounced back from getting injured and wanted to finish the ball game. That speaks volume on his maturity and growth. Jamel relaxed on one play, got beat on a double move, and I want to see a little more aggressiveness out of Sean. He had 2 bad penalties, holding, and just bad technique, so he can play a whole lot better.
Yeah, what seems to have kind of been going on with him this year that I know he'd taken such big leaps at the end of last season. Do you feel like that carried over, or what is it maybe some new or different things happening this year? What overall have you seen of him?
Well, he got beat in San Diego, and I don't know if it's added a little bit of cautiousness to him, but he's just got to relax and play. He's got all that talent, and those were bad penalties, and we'll have a good talk this week.
And this is our first show with you since the news broke of signing Antonio Brown. I wanted to hear from you what you've seen from him on the field of your time coaching against him, guys that you know who have, your time coaching him, and just what you see of what he brings on the field and what he could add to this offense.
Yeah, Antonio's an explosive player. He's a great run after the catch guy, very much like Chris. It just adds a ton of insurance. And, Chris and Mike have been hobbled. Scotty's been hobbled. If God forbid we lose one of those guys, we've got another quality player to plug in there as our young guys continue to develop. And so it was. I think it was a win-win for him and a win-win for us, financially and every way else. I don't think Antonio's going to be a problem whatsoever. I think he wants to play and prove that his legacy on the field is good.
And now, how do you make sure you work to get him ready for the offense when I know he is allowed to be around the team a little bit before the suspension is actually over, but how do you make sure that he's going to be ready to hit the ground running when it's already halfway through the season by the time he's going to be available?
Yeah, it'll be a limited role just as we grow and bring him into the offense. Hopefully we don't have to throw him in there because of injury right away, but he'll be ready if he does. He's a bright player, and he'll be out on the practice field Wednesday, so he'll get a good week this week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and be ready the following week.
And we've talked about just the fact that it takes time for weapons on offense to be on the same page. How helpful was it to know that if you are going to bring a guy in mid-season like this, that he does at least have a little bit of a background with Tom Brady?
Yeah, one game, but a couple weeks of practice. So it's not a lot of time, but enough that he caught a touchdown or two in that one game. So, and Tom found him, and so I think it's going to take a little time, but it does with everybody.
Yeah, and we talked about that with the Bucs offense overall this year, that it was going to take a little bit of time, and it's crazy to realize that next game will be halfway through the games of the regular season. Where do you see that the offense is at now, and the ways that it has grown in those 8 weeks? Is it where you hoped it would be at this point in the season?
Yeah, we're pretty close. I think we're jogging now. We were crawling through September. I think we're jogging now. We left about 150 yards out there again this week, so we haven't hit full stride yet, that's for sure. And a lot of it's because of in and out of the lineup, different guys, and the timing factor. So I think each week we're getting better and better. Tom's getting great understanding of what we're trying to get done, where the ball goes versus certain coverages. I like the fact we're hitting our deep shots, and we're growing and growing.
All right, well, we still have one more segment coming up here on the Bruce Arians Show. We're going to get into that game against the Giants on Monday Night Football coming up, so we'll be right back. Back into the final segment here of the Bruce Arians Show. Casey Phillips with head coach Bruce Arians. We're going to dive into that matchup against the Giants coming up. So, Coach, first of all, Daniel Jones, I know we faced him last year as well. What have you seen of the growth of him and what you can tell about why the Giants, wanted to pick him as high as they did?
Yeah, he's a great athlete. He can run. He can run for 80 yards. He needs work on that last 20, but that was to make that play was even amazing. But Daniel can throw it. He can run it. He's a very cool customer in the pocket. I really like his game, and he'll be a heck of a challenge for our defense.
And of course, them losing Saquon Barkley is a huge factor to what they were planning to do on offense. What have you seen about the ways that they have dealt with that loss and what they can still bring in the run game?
Yeah, they've got quality backs and a good offensive line. They're young, but they're moving the ball. I think they're growing as an offense as we are, with Daniel learning new weapons. But they get Sterling Shepard back in there. That's a big guy for them. And Golden Tate. They've got weapons, and we're gonna have to have the best effort we've had all year.
And how about on the defensive side of things for them? What are some of the areas that you guys are going to have to pay attention to, and where maybe our offense would be able to exploit that?
Leonard Williams, he's a handful. They got a big physical defensive line. They do a good job of matching up coverages. They're well coached football team. Joe Judge is doing a really nice job. And the big thing for me is we can't get tricked in special teams. They've got a bunch of trick plays and do really good stuff with special teams. We got to be have our T's and I's all dotted and crossed and be ready to go on special teams. But Yeah, it's going to be a handful.
And then what is your message going into a game when you've had a few weeks in a row of some pretty potent opponents, and especially record-wise when you're facing an undefeated Packers team, and then you're about to face a team that, their record is not quite as imposing maybe, but you know that any team can win at any point in the league. So what is your message to make sure that the team doesn't take anybody for granted?
We got to take care of ourselves, and I'm more concerned with us making sure we have great Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday practices to prepare for the ball game, and we never overlook anyone. Everybody in this league can beat anybody. The Giants had a few games they could have won, so they could have easily been 3-2.
All right, well, that's going to do it for us on this edition of the Bruce Arians Show. Again, Coach, thanks for being with us. Congrats on that win, and good luck against Monday Night Football on the Giants.
Thanks, Casey.